You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Kurlop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Allie Garced, aka Allie the Agent. Allie, what's going on today?
Hello, Craig. Oh, today's an amazing day. I love the mornings. I love, I don't know, every day is just a freaking amazing day. I wanted to tell you, actually, I'm under contract on another property. Yep. Because my wife and I are like, moving in, live there for a year, move out, rent it out. So
tell us deets. What's it look like?
Well, as you know, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and the current location that we're living in is not the best. Our cars were vandalized. My wife and my cars the other day were vandalized. The next day I was like, hey, I'm getting pre-approved. The day after that, I submitted an offer, got it accepted. So it's going to be a new build. Should the inspection go through? Okay. A new build, technically in the town of Marana, which is just north, a little bit more of a drive to the base for my wife, but I'm looking forward to a new build. I've never purchased a new one.
Wow, that's gonna be great. Yeah, I heard new builds are nice. Usually the inspections are pretty good on new builds, but you never know. And that's great. Well, congrats. Is it like, so you're just going to live in this thing yourself, right? You're not going to rent out the rooms or anything like that. Is this going to be a forever home for you guys? Or are you going to be popping over again for the next year?
We'll be popping smoke again soon. My wife still being in the military will have maybe like a year or two left in Tucson. So we'll see where we are taken to next. But we actually are considering a roommate on this one. Because it's like so big, we probably wouldn't even see the roommate.
Wow.
And I don't mean that to like sound bougie at all. That's not me. But I'm like, hey, why not? It's a big ass place.
I don't know, Ellie. You might be bougier. I think you got a big house. You go to Scandinavia or something for like bachelorette parties. You're always wearing colorful shirts.
Bougie.
Yeah, I think you're bougie. Is that like you don't wear the same? You don't wear the same shirt 2 days in a row, or you don't wear the same shirt twice ever, right? So you're always buying new shirts.
You will see this shirt again next Thursday and the Thursday after that. I definitely only have like 14 shirts in my closet. So I literally only have 14 shirts in my closet.
Yo, only 14 and only 35 pairs of shoes. Yeah. All right. Speaking of 35 pairs of shoes, we have some great guests today. Caleb and Kyle. And they are awesome people. Honestly, tremendous amount of growth in the last 3 years, and started big, right? That's something that we don't hear. And so definitely listen all the way through. We throw some jokes in at the end, and they drop some pretty good bombs at the end, like the what is your why? I really like the what is your why from both of them. And so, yeah, if you haven't already, guys, please leave us a rating and review. We usually ask for this at the end, but we're trying something different. We're going to ask for it in the beginning. So hopefully more people will leave us rating and reviews so we can get this show out to tons and tons of people out there so we can spread this word and this love of financial independence. So share it with your friends, leave us a rating and review, and let's get to the show. This episode of Investify was brought to you by the Fi Team, a team of investor-friendly agents that service all 50 states. If you are looking to house hack, to invest, grow your portfolio, and want a true investor-friendly agent on your side, go to thefiteam.com and click Get Started, and we can't wait to have a good conversation with you. Kyle Aho and Caleb Van Timmeren, welcome to the show, my friends. How you doing today, guys?
Doing well. Very excited. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Are you guys freezing up there in Michigan, like right off the lake, or what?
Oh, it's a beautiful day. It's like 45. Yeah, it's like 45.
Oh, God.
Yep. Damn. You guys are hitting summer weather up there. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Hey, guys, thanks so much for coming on the show. We want to hear your story, right? Especially because it's a partnership. This is going to be a little bit of a unique episode because it's the two of you. And so, when did y'all first hear about financial independence? Give us like that date and time. And yeah, when was that happening?
So we probably both had heard about it a little bit prior to our partnership, but we couldn't wrap our head around it until thinking about teaming up and partnering. And at that point, when we first had talked about it, about going into something a little bit larger scale, looking at an apartment complex together, that was now about 3.5 years ago, right in probably the middle of the pandemic. And both Caleb and I were in a position where we were working extremely hard for somebody else, and realized, like, man, if we put these efforts into something that we truly own, I think financial independence is probably achievable, and we went after it together.
Yeah, and I would kind of piggyback on that. A lot of it started with the want and the desire, first off, to get our wives kind of out of jobs. You knew once we started having kids, both of us wanted our wives to stay at home. And so that kind of where the start was, and then realized, man, I don't know if I like what I do, and I'm not passionate about what I do, and can find something else. And really, it was a trip with Kyle actually that for me that he kind of opened my eyes to the financial independence a little bit. He had been investing for years before me, so that's kind of what led us into being able to partner up with the right opportunity that presented itself.
So this happened about 3 years ago, right? So we're recording this in 2023. So you're talking like late 2019, early 2020. Sound like about the right time frame?
Exactly.
That's exactly it.
And Kyle, how did you convince Caleb to get on this financial independence train with you?
Yeah, so I think it was the track record, like Caleb had brought up. I had been doing it since 2011, and had met with Caleb. Caleb and I were college teammates and college roommates, and we had talked it over a little bit during that time period, and he got more and more interested, had the savviness, and he's an extremely frugal guy, which I'm sure he'll touch on. So he had all of the pieces that I kind of grew up around hearing about, and grew up around as I was kind of evolving in my own small private portfolio. And so then it was at that point that Caleb had asked all the right questions. He's like, man, when's the right time? And it just happened to be a little bigger than what typically people usually partner on, and we went after it.
That's awesome. And so Caleb, you basically were just like, all right, like you talked to Kyle, you quit your job, and then was like all in on real estate, or did it take some time? Was there some transition there?
Man, it did. So I started actually probably like a lot of people, right? I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which shifted my mental state there. But then what happened was, bought a place myself, a duplex, and then the opportunity presented itself it was the spring, late winter of 2020, when we bought our first deal together, and it was a 15-unit apartment building that we ended up going in together on, and had a lot of upside, and was just in disrepair at the time.
I know what this sounds like.
What does it sound like, Allie?
1,
2, 3. The for real deal.
Oh, shit. We're gonna get there.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We are there. This is it. This is raw. This is authentic. Caleb, Kyle, the for real deal. This is your first deal that y'all did together, intentional or unintentionally. So, sounds like it's a big one. 12, 15 units, you said, in the spring of 2020. So tell us a little bit about that.
I'll give a little bit of the run up there, and then Caleb can describe the details. So there was an apartment complex nearby where we had already made some investments, and it had sat vacant for, I want to say, maybe 2-3 years, and in the lead time prior to the pandemic. When I say vacant, I think 4 or 5 of the total 15 units were occupied. The rest of the building was in significant disrepair, and it was an owner that we had purchased a couple small properties from prior. So that timing happened perfectly. The pandemic hit, and Caleb and I were both kind of sat home for a week, 2 weeks, whatever everybody else sat home, and we ran the numbers on this place, and then I guess from there we just let that momentum carry us.
How did you find that deal?
I looked at it probably in 2016, 2017, same ownership, and it was one of those things that it was in such significant disrepair that nobody else really went after it. It got actually delisted, or it came down off the MLS, and sat in the same condition, kind of slowly just dilapidating, and so the opportunity was there. So we just called the gentleman that had the listing back 2017, 2018, and he was willing to say, hey, as soon as the moratorium comes off, we'll show you. And I think we viewed it the day after the stay-at-home came off, and so Caleb traveled up, I think, 400, 500 miles that day, and we took a look.
Nice. And you mentioned dilapidated. What kind of work needed to be done? And did that scare you at all? What were your thoughts on the rehab process?
Yeah, I would say no from the standpoint of scaring us. There was 15 rented, so 10 vacancies, and those range from a few of them needed quite a bit of drywall work on the walls, and then no floors. I mean, bathrooms were missing pretty much, kitchen, same thing. So really just was coming in and renovating those places to get them rent ready. So that's all new paint, putting all new flooring in, and those items.
What did you got? What did you guys buy this place for?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I can go over the numbers real quick. We bought the property for 230,000. We put a traditional mortgage on it with 20% down. We both kind of came out of pocket for that. We probably had about 100, maybe 125, maybe not even quite that. And onto the renovation side. And then pretty much once we got done, it was probably a 4-month period for us to renovate it. Basically, me and Kyle used all our PTO, our time off from our employers and work, and spent it laboring, working on apartments, and putting some sweat equity into it. And then after that 4-month period, we were able to refinance it and appraise for, I think it was 750,000. So pretty much triple the value in about 4 months. Yep, and we went from a
Wow.
rent roll of 2,100 is when we purchased it. When we were done with the renovation, we were at 9,100 for the rent roll.
Damn.
Wow. And so that's your value right there, right? So when you're valuing a 12 to 15 unit, you're not necessarily looking at each individual unit. You're looking at what is the rent roll, right? And what are the expenses? And so the fact that you could go in, renovate them, reduce the expenses, increase the rents, you're really higher, like increasing that net operating income. That's like the glory of the multifamily space in the 5 plus, because it's just like solely in your control, not necessarily like in an appraiser is how the appraiser's feeling that day. Um, and so how much money did you guys pull money out of that? Did y'all refinance it, or are you just keeping the cash flow?
We did, yeah. So we ended up refinancing and pulled enough cash out. We had a couple other deals we were looking at. We ended up with that cash. We pulled out on the refinance, bought a 16-unit apartment building, and then we ended up buying a mobile home community too with that cash pulled out. So really, it financed our deals going forward, and we've kind of been our MO going forward, even past that, where we've come out of pocket very little personally.
The interesting timeline there is as we did this, we were still working W-2s. So this entire time, we were still both in probably, I would say, very demanding W-2s. I liked mine, and I know Caleb was all in on his. And so we really didn't have that next deal lined up. We just knew like, hey, this worked pretty well, and we'd like to continue this success, or we'd like to keep this momentum rolling.
So, one thing a lot of people sometimes they miss in burrs is that when you refinance, your monthly payment on the mortgage goes up because you're just taking out a bigger mortgage. And so, what was your cash flow after that was all said and done?
With debt service,
Yes.
yeah, so we only ended up taking it was about a 60% loan to value. So we didn't even max that out. So we pulled probably 150 maybe out of it in that ballpark. So really our debt service didn't go up a ton. So we are still cash flowing about 4 grand a month in this property after all was said and done.
Wow.
And oddly
So
enough,
that's
right?
2 grand each. Are you guys? What's that?
Well, oddly enough, interest rates too at that time were 4.25. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So like it was just a different lending environment at the same time. So it
Yeah.
was perfect scenario.
Perfect scenario. And go ahead, Ali.
Oh, well, you also talk about partnerships. I want to talk a little bit about how you guys are dividing up or how you guys pull together. You guys met each other in college. Which university was that?
Yeah,
We
go
met
ahead,
at Alma
Kyle.
College. Yeah, small college, private institution down in the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. So we met down there. That's where we met our wives as well,
Nice.
and so yeah, we were college teammates
Cool.
there. And going back
Yeah.
to Craig's question there of how we split that, so because of the W-2s, we didn't pull anything off of these deals. So we didn't pull an income. We cashed out on a refi, but we put that into an account knowing that we were going to roll this into the next one. We had very comfortable W-2s at that time.
Yeah, I know a lot of like newer investors are sometimes scared of partnerships because of everything that could go wrong, right? Because when you make a list of everything that could go wrong, that list can be very lengthy. Luckily, you two had already a good relationship. How did you guys do anything formal, like an actual LLC partnership, operating agreement, anything like that? Can you guys talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure, man. We had being good friends and great friends before definitely helped, but we also knew that with that could come a situation where something bad arose, right? And so we had many conversations, many nights, and basically we did definitely put LCs in place, put operating agreements in place, all the legal procedures there.
I got a question around like the roles, right? Because
Yeah.
you both are wearing gray sweaters, so we know you're good at that. But like, what are some of the like what are like you need to have two separate roles in order to really have a partnership that grows. So curious, Kyle, like what's your role within the partnership, and Caleb, what's yours?
Yeah, and I guess I'll preface this by saying it has evolved significantly over the course of 3 years, right? From that first deal, we were every aspect of gutting, demo, construction, leasing, answering phones. And now 3 years later, that role has evolved a ton. I still am here local, at least around the project site. And so I would say I've kind of moved into acquisition, project management, I would say in a sense, the visionary seat. And then Caleb has taken a very different role, or I guess a different subset of roles, and really leads our entire property management division and helps a ton on the construction renovation side as well. I'll let him kind of describe his role a little more in detail.
Yes, so I am, like Kyle mentioned, from where our properties are, I'm probably about a 5-6 hour drive away. And so we do everything remotely. So my wife does the books. Both our wives are involved in the business. I do a lot of property management, do some acquisitions too, and handle that side of it, line up subs, if we're doing all that. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So Caleb, it sounds like you do all the stuff that possibly could be done remote, and Kyle, you're the boots on the ground, making sure the thing works. And so, yeah, and so basically, I just want to recap real quick because you guys know how much I love my recaps. So you guys kind of start your partnership at the end of 2019, 2020, you buy your first property. It takes you 4 months, so now we're probably into like mid to late summer of 2020 when that thing is all rented and all that. And I can't help but ask, right? Like you bought a 15 unit for 230 and refinanced that same 15 unit in good condition at 750. So this seems like it's a relatively cheap market. How did you fill the units, right? Like did you guys have any fears on vacancy if it wasn't like a growing population and all of the things people look for in new markets, right?
This is probably a big prime driver in why we've been able to be successful is we wanted to put out a product that was different than the status quo, and that's been probably the dividing force or the driving force for us. Is we've been able to put together a really, really nice unit. We call it wife approved because like Caleb brought up, they have been key contributors for us and have been right along with us in this whole process. And so at the end of the day, we had a unit that was very different than the norm. It is a growing population. There's a college campus nearby. So there was all of the metrics. This property was so dilapidated, and actually just a short story on that property in particular. I believe it was a prison release program back in the day. It had been run down, so it had this reputation and this culture that it just wasn't desirable for people.
How was the neighborhood that it was in?
It was great. It really kind of sits alone. It sits off of a highway. It really didn't have adjacent neighbors. It's in a commercial district, so it doesn't have other residential neighbors. So that first one. Again, going kind of back to the track record, all of our other units on the private side were rented, had great low vacancy. Like a lot of places around the nation, hadn't had a high vacancy rate in a long time, and so they filled as quickly as we could get them done, and that's been the MO even 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. And so have you increased? So you bought that thing in 2020, and you even settled it in 2020, but now we're here 2.5 years later, 2023, early 2023. Have you been able to raise the rents and all that stuff? Like where are you guys at now with cash flow and what you think the property might be worth?
Yeah, we are. So right now, that property brings in gross $11,800 a month. So we've increased that cash flow by almost almost $3,000, a month, just in that short period of time. So pretty significant. And I would say the value in that regard that has increased. We'd say it's just shy of $1 million property.
Wow. And so like just kind of hearing that, it just shows like the power of these multifamily properties, right? You said it's got 15 units and you increased it $3,000 in the course of 2.5 years. And really all that is $200 per unit over the course of 3 years, which isn't much. It's like 75-ish, $67 a year.
Yep.
Increase in rent, which no one would balk at. But if you can just do that consistently with all of your units, which anybody could do, You've now increased your cash flow $3,000 a month over the course of 3 years, and probably add $250,000 of equity into your pockets. And so,
Forced appreciation.
I do really like that's the power of multifamily.
It is.
Right?
Yep. It is.
And so I think I want to hear kind of what happens after the first one, because you kind of alluded that you put some money aside and went to number two. Allie, did you have anything to add on this first one before we move on?
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going to go. Is what's next? You mentioned, yeah, another apartment building and a mobile home park.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Oddly enough, we both just went back to our W-2s not knowing what was next, even though it was relatively successful in terms of like, okay, we refinanced out of this. We had a local gentleman, another lender, give us a call, and he said, "Hey, as well as that went, I think there's another really dilapidated apartment complex that's kind of primed for the picking." And we started conversation. He gave us a number. We started conversation there, and probably 4 or 5 months later, it would have been, I guess, January of 2021. January or February of 2021, we closed on another 16 unit that was very similar condition.
You said that was the lender that gave you that?
It was a different lender or a different manager of a institution, another commercial supervisor, and actually had done some work with them in the past.
Okay, yeah, nice. How did you initially start that relationship to where a lender is giving you properties?
Yeah, so that happens just with being, I guess, a good person and having good relationships. I think that that's probably one of the characteristics of Caleb and I both, is that when we try to be very genuine in our relationships, and that was a friendship of a long-standing, last probably 10 years. And so when that gentleman saw the efforts that we put into this 15 unit, he thought, hey, this is probably reproducible, and so he brought that forward. There was no motive at all. It was not like it was a brand new relationship. Like, he just did that kind of from the kindness of his heart, I guess, in a sense. Also knowing that the impact on the community and the area was pretty significant. So he obviously saw that side of it as well.
And so you said this was a 16-unit apartment?
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Okay. And I guess, and what'd you buy this one for?
Yes. So Caleb could probably break that one down.
Yeah, so we bought that one. I want to say it was for $300. And the condition was in, unfortunately, we just weren't able to leave residents in. Between the condition of it, we had pipes leaking. We just had a lot of work we had to get in there and do. So we actually ended up vacating the whole thing, redid the whole entire project, and funded it ourselves. Like I said, we were both still working at this point a little bit, and it was in this process of purchasing this property when we left our W-2. But at that point, yeah, we ended up getting all the work done in probably about 5 to 6 months it took to finish the renovation on it. Then did the same exact thing, got it reappraised, revalued, and then did a cash out refi on it.
Wow. Okay. So were you guys nervous at all during this process? Because now you have no money coming in. You got pipes leaking, probably on some electrical wires or whatever. But what? Most people, especially on their second deal with this big of a property, and you're talking, sounds like hundreds of thousands of dollars of rehab. Like, people are scared of this, man. So how do you overcome those fears?
Man, I would say one thing, we have a great team in place, and it's grown since then. So team members that are on our team that are helping contribute on the construction side, even the property management side. But man, me and Kyle, and realistically, honestly, we looked at each other a few times and said, are we making a mistake? You know what I mean? Like, that didn't cross our mind a few times. But knowing the upside and knowing what we just did, and that we could do the exact same model again, we just knew it'd take some sweat equity, a little bit of work, but we knew the outcome, what we would turn it into.
A small caveat to that story too is if we had been able to get in all of the units, we might have backed out of this particular deal. It was one of those things that a couple doors couldn't get open for whatever reason, and then after purchase, after sale, right, we realized the reason why, and so at that point, once we were in, there was no turning back, and I think that goes with our personalities and goes with kind of our background of like, hey, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna work hard enough to make this deal work. And so that was really why we weren't paralyzed by that fear.
That's awesome. What lessons did you learn, and did your risk tolerance increase from your first 15 unit to your second or 16 unit? As far as renovations, did your requirements change? Can you talk about that?
I think we realized at that time that the possibility was there. And so the upside was there as long as the units were rentable. And like Craig had alluded to, there's always a sense of doubt. There's always a little bit of sense of fear of like, man, can we actually rent these out? Can we actually get this project done? So that was in the back of our minds. I think it could do one of two things. And I think for us, for Caleb and I and our families, it drove us to work a little bit harder. Probably not to the liking of our wives at that point, but we spent more hours, more time in the DIY just making sure that, hey, we are going to make this work regardless of how much we had to work on it.
Yeah. For inspections, for other people that, are inspired by your story that want to do the same thing, what inspections do you suggest that they get that either you got or didn't get, should have gotten, coulda, woulda, shoulda? What should other listeners do and be mindful of?
Yeah, I would say hindsight is 2020, and looking back on it, we definitely should have done a little more due diligence. But either way, I would not change for a second the fact of purchasing these properties. I mean, we've definitely added things to what we look at. So a lot of these properties, we have not got a home inspector to do it. I would suggest that, but we have done it ourselves. We walked every unit. But really, both of us are very handy. We have a super good team, and so there's no project at this point that would scare us because we've seen it all, And so we can look over the trash and the clutter and the holes in the drywall and the leaky pipes and know all that stuff is fixable. I mean, there's nothing on there that can't be fixed and renovated and brought back to life. And so that's the way that we've looked at a lot of projects that we have going forward here.
What's like one thing you say that like you can't change? Like it's like too much of a pain to change. It would scare you away and it would be a deal breaker. Like you said, some of the things with those units that, you couldn't break down the doors and you might have backed out. Like, yeah, give us some ideas there.
For me personally, I think it's the neighborhood. You brought it up earlier. I think that piece to me would probably be more concerning than anything on the actual structure of the building. From an aspect of we just purchased another couple places with a roof leaking or a foundation leaking or a bug issue. Those are all fixable, and I can't remember exactly who said it, but if you can write a check for it, it's fixable. And unfortunately, you can't write a check to change the culture of the neighborhood that you're in or the environment that you're in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Right. Like neighborhood, they always say you want to buy the crappiest house in the nicest neighborhood, and that's
Right.
how you get the most value. When a lot of people are investing in single family homes, right, or like the duplex, triplex, quad. So I don't know if you guys have any experience with this, but one thing that I'm always a little weary of is like basements with really low ceilings that people claim that they can finish or like stuff like that, right? Do you run into that in your units at all? Or is there anything that's like similar to that where, this won't work? Or I don't know if you need laundry in units or outside the units these days or whatever, like, but you're not afraid of any of that stuff.
No, I would say not. We do have some duplexes in our portfolio, so I definitely is I'd say thing to look at. It could be a cause for concern, especially low ceilings if you can't have access to it or can't do it. I would say laundry in the unit is a big want for residents, though, for sure.
And so do you put laundry in your units?
We do in some. So we have some townhouses we do, but a lot of these, the couple apartments we just alluded to and talked about, we don't have individual inside. So we have a commons area with a shared laundry room, which is still ideal and still works. It's not the best situation, but it gives us actually a little income coming in on that side and allows the tenants to have a place to wash clothes there.
Awesome. Cool. So you guys, okay, we got property one, we got property two. I guess let's get a little bit more into the numbers on property two real quick. Where you said you bought it for 300. You had to vacate the whole thing. How much did you actually end up spending in the rehab? It sounds like it was bigger than project one. And then what were you renting it out for after?
Yeah, good question. So we probably put right around 250, maybe 200, 250 in between material, labor, some subs. And this whole time, me and Kyle are still not taking a wage, so that's helping keep that a little lower. So we're doing a lot of the work on site, not taking a wage ourselves, just putting sweat equity in. But what we ended up getting for rent for that was almost 14,000 total is what we ended with gross rent. And then we refinanced, put a mortgage on. The property appraised at 1.2. So almost 4 times the purchase price after we got done and got it fully rented. And we had no problem leasing this. We actually had a wait list by the time we were done.
Wow. And what were those rents at?
Yeah, so there are 3 and 2 bedroom places on the property. A 3 bedroom we were renting for $975 and a 2 bedroom for $875.
Wow. Okay. So you guys found what works in your area. right? And so I want to just talk to everybody real quick. And it's like, you guys, what sounds like in a cheaper area where you can pick up these multi-unit properties for, under 500,000 or so, but fix them up. And so, if you're in an expensive market, these properties aren't going to be 300. They're going to be 2 to 3 million. And so, and it's really the same numbers, right? If a dilapidated property goes for 2 million, well, fixed up, it might go for 5. And so I just want to encourage people to not be too afraid of the numbers and just look to see if the deal works. And if you're handy, I think plus like two thumbs up for you. How many trips to Home Depot did this cost you?
Man, too many.
Endless.
Too many.
Endless.
Enough that we have got a contractor card at every big box store and every small hardware store that you can imagine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can only imagine. Awesome. Allie, anything else you want to chat on about number 2? Or I'd say we could probably move on to what's next.
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, so you guys are done with 2 properties. It sounds like you've got, sorry, would you say the second property cash flows you? I know you said $14,000 in rent.
Yes, I want to say it cash flows right around $6,000 to $7,000, right in that ballpark. So we're cash flowing after expenses, PTI. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, unfortunately, but I think it's in that ballpark.
Okay, so between the 2 of you now, you've got over $10,000 of cash flow for just two properties, right? That sounds about 30 units. And so then what do you got going after that?
When we were working on that deal, that second apartment complex, at the same time, we had a great chance at a mobile home community and actually purchased that almost at the exact same time. I think we purchased that on December 28th of 2020. So right at that same time, we went into the mobile home park and didn't really have a ton of renovation there like we did in that apartment complex. Most of the homes were owned by the occupants there, and so that was the same timeline.
Okay.
And how did you find that one?
Yeah, very similar. That was also a local owner, that gentleman that had been doing it a really long time, and again another owner, like a lot of places across the U.S., that probably was looking to retire and looking to phase out, and so it was just, again, local relationships.
And I would
How are
say
you building and initiating those local relationships?
Great question,
Yeah.
Ali. So the biggest piece is probably reputation, of following through with what you say that you're going to do. And at that point, already had a little bit of traction. We had a track history of like doing exactly what we said we were going to do. We were going to remodel apartment complexes or remodel places and make them livable.
Were you reaching out to them? How did those initiate?
Yeah, it has all been driven by us, in a sense that most of the time it's us giving them a call. The uncomfortable part of dialing somebody up and talking with them, and we still do that. Caleb and I both still do a lot of cold calling, not as much door knocking, but a lot of cold calling, a lot of conversations, a lot of asking questions of like, hey, when's the right time for you?
We hope this episode is inspiring you to take action. If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent or an agent who wants to join an investor-friendly team, just hit me up on Instagram at @TheFi because we are growing our team in Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but also adding to our network in all 50 states. And if you didn't already know this, the Fi team provides a super supportive environment with one-on-one coaching, accountability, and ongoing training to help develop kick-ass, rock-star, investor-friendly real estate agents. So hit me up on Instagram at @TheFi, shoot me a DM, and we'll set up a time to chat. Can't wait to chat with you. How do you guys go about analyzing deals like this? Have you guys gone to conferences and taken the courses, or did you all just kind of like, oh, here's the rents, here are the numbers, like old school style?
Man, we are like obsessed with learning and reading.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's both of us. And so I think so Caleb and I would both probably say the exact same list of books, but we read and studied and listened to every Bigger Pockets episode for 500 episodes. And so I think that education piece gives you the layer of depth that you can say, hey, I could pretty much analyze anything. And so that's really how we were able to do that.
Okay. That's, it's amazing that you guys are able to, find these things, analyze them, and really just kind of do it from all of the free resources given to you. I mean, maybe you bought a couple books, but like pretty much free. And so, man, it's incredible. So I guess, what does your portfolio look like today?
So we're right around, I want to say 180 to 200 units, right in that ballpark is what we have now, mostly consisting of apartments, mid-size apartments. We do have duplexes in that portfolio also. The mobile home community, which is a continue add. It's a 114 pad mobile home community. Currently, we're only at 43 homes, and when we bought it, we were at 28. So we've added quite a few homes, and we're continuing to add homes and sell those as we go.
On the mobile home front, are you just buying? Is it your homes, or are you just buying the land and the pads, and then they rent the pads from you?
Correct. Yep. So we own the land, pretty much, the infrastructure, and then the resident will own the home, and they will own everything in there.
Okay, and so all you're doing is just charging lot rent, basically.
Correct.
Right, and you're making sure that they can get water and gas and whatever utilities need hooked up, and
Correct.
that's it.
That is it. We do have a couple rentals in there that are we converting to an ownership model, but otherwise, yeah, man, that's about it. So it's super low maintenance. I mean, we've had our fair share of water and infrastructure issues, but other than that, that's about it.
So how does buying a mobile home park differ from like the multifamily? How does the analysis differ there?
Yeah, I'd say the hardest part is you don't have ownership of the homes. So you really don't have ownership of the community in a sense, where you could change it with an apartment complex with a pretty easy system of like, okay, if you know you've got a bad neighbor in an apartment, you can evict them. Unfortunately, in a mobile home community, they're pretty well protected and if they own their home. So that's probably the biggest piece, is making sure that that the neighborhood is safe in a sense, and then the infrastructure is the other big piece. And Caleb kind of alluded to it. But we had a water main break probably 2 months after closing on the property in the middle of winter. Like everybody knows, in Michigan is a terrible time to start digging holes and looking for a water main break. And so I would say the infrastructure is the other big piece that's not consistent with multifamily.
So how would you have found that before buying?
You know, that one, if the water metering system was a little more intact, like we've got a pretty good system intact now and we track it very close, I think there would have been evidence of a small leak, but really it was a rupture in a main that was, you know, I hate to say it, but unpredictable. And so that's where you've got to have reserves. You've got to have a little bit of financial savviness to say, hey, we're going to save for a rainy day.
How much reserves would you suggest?
I would now say more than I would have said then, because that I believe that water bill was $20,000-$30,000, and so that type of investment, right, where you've got let's say a $500,000 infrastructure, is more important to carry a heavier reserve. And I think the earlier on you are and the less stability you have in your portfolio, I think it's more important that reserve leans toward the heavy side.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're buying these pads, right? Basically, just the raw land, basically. You're increasing the value by, I guess, it seems like improving the utility delivery system. You're adding more units, adding more lots, just renting out, less vacancy, essentially. Is there anything more to it, or are you just trying to get them all filled?
I would say that's the main goal, is to get them all filled for sure. I mean, so we're having to source a lot of these homes. It's very rare that we'll get an organic move-in or someone that's to move a home from another area, just because the cost is so high to get a mover to reskirt it, to hook up utilities. So we're having to source these homes in and then sell them.
Okay, so you are buying the homes, putting them on your land, and then selling the land with basically like with the lot as like leased land. That's how you do it?
Not the land. So we hold ownership of the land. We're charging lot rent. We're selling just the home with the title, is what the individual, the resident, would buy.
Okay, but they would be moving onto your land,
Exactly.
paying you lot rent.
Yep, exactly. That's
Okay. And just kind of like regular rent, does lot rent increase every year, or do you have it fixed?
So yes and no. So we have I would say population that is on a pretty fixed income. So as of this point, we've chose not to raise the rent at all. For people moving in new, we have raised it a little bit. But our main focus right now is the infill process and getting that place more stabilized and getting more, because we know every home we're moving in and person we're moving in, that's increasing the value of the park plus increasing our cash flow. Our fixed expenses are pretty much set. Right.
So you're looking at it like, I don't care about $25 a month. I'd rather just have an extra $600 a month or whatever it is for each lot. Oh my gosh, I feel like I've got so many questions about this. Okay, this will be maybe my last one, but probably not. It sounds like you're basically you're like in this hybrid of selling homes, but also being a landlord, right? Because so like, what does your screening process look like for a lot? Like, obviously, I suspect the tenants are going to be a little bit rougher around the edges, and so what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. So we screen the residents same as we would with our apartments. So we're running a credit background check on them. We're verifying income, calling references, and that's even for someone that's buying a home. We still want to know that we don't have someone moving in that's that has a felony on their record or that doesn't have income to afford the property. So we're going through a screening process the same as what we would if we were moving in anyplace else.
Okay, and if these guys are on government assistance or anything like that, do you include that as part of their income?
We do.
Or do you not include that because that could go away? Okay,
Yep,
you do include that.
we do.
Okay, okay. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like, shit, I need to buy a mobile home park now.
Let's do it
You know,
together.
but
Craig.
Ellie,
yeah.
Ellie, you in?
I'm in.
I don't think there's winter in Tucson, so let's go Tucson.
Yes, come here. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's like 80 today.
Yeah, we got like 35.
Right.
Oh
right.
man. All right. So just to kind of recap this, if anybody did want to get into the mobile home park realm, I think it's quite interesting. I think because it seems super low maintenance. You're basically buying land and just with ability to hook up utilities, and you're just renting out individual spots. You don't got to worry about toilets breaking. You don't got to worry about people messing up these homes. But what you do have to worry about is buying these mobile home type things, which I'm not sure where they're at in your area, but in mine they're about 150K or so. How much are those, and are you buying them cash? Because you really can't finance them, right?
Right. Right, exactly. So we are pretty much buying them all cash. We bought homes, to be honest, anywhere from $50 for a home up to $20,000 for a home. But they need some work.
$50.
$50 for a home, yeah. And it was in disrepair, right? So we brought it in. We had more than the moving costs to bring it in, but then we were able to fix it up. And really, what kind of our mindset is, we're trying to sell the home even at our costs, just to get the resident in there, to add value to the park. When we bring a home in, then add cash flow. So we're not trying to make a big profit on the sale of the home itself. We have sourced some new homes and also that we started to bring in.
Okay. Would you sell or finance any of these homes?
We do. We
You do?
we prefer to call the rent credit program, but yes, we do.
Okay. And tell me what the rent credit program is.
Yeah, so so what we're doing is we're having someone that's making payments towards a home like they would if they were just renting a home, but we're taking those payments and giving them a credit for it. So when they get enough basically credits put down or money paid towards a home, at that point we are gifting them the home and they have ownership of the home. And then from that point they would go, say they're paying $800 per month, they would drop down to what our lot rent is and they would own the home, have the title at that point to the home. We try to do within usually 3 to 5 years, have like an ownership window there.
Wow.
Super interesting, man. Like I haven't heard this much detail about about kind of mobile home parks, and maybe that's because I haven't done much of that. But this is really intriguing. Yeah, Allie, anything you want to add? I feel like I'm taking over the show because I'm like super interested.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here listening to everything. I want to back up just a little bit. In the acquisitions portion, you mentioned you guys are like pretty much cold calling.
Correct.
How would one call someone? First of all, how do you find a number? How does someone who has no idea, is interested in maybe buying one, probably has the capital or can find capital, where would they find a number and what exactly should they say?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
I can take that one. Or you want to go, Kyle? Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually we kind of break it up in the system, in our acquisition system currently, which we could describe. Caleb does the skip tracing, so I'll let him describe that, and then I can talk over a little bit of the relationship piece.
Yes, so most all our deals we have sourced off market, where we've been direct calling sellers. And we've gone just through lists of finding and just called, and most have been on apartment buildings. But to be honest, it really is not too hard to find ownership of an LLC or an individual owner of a property. For example, recently we bought a 32 unit off a gentleman that would not answer his phone. I ended up calling his insurance agency that he owned. He owned an insurance agency. Called them, just acted as a client, wanted to talk to this individual. He called me back, and I got on the phone with him, met with lunch for him, and just created a relationship with him. Ended up buying his place, seller finance on a 32 unit recently. So things like that, we'll basically do whatever we have to try to either get in front of that potential seller or get a conversation with them, because we think that we can turn that into a sale if we can, and with the right win-win.
How do you handle those objections? right?
Like,
Because I'm sure you're not. I'm sure like when you get on the phone with somebody and you ask, "Hey, are you looking to sell?" They're just gonna be like, "Oh, not another one of these guys," and they hang up on you, or
Yeah.
right. So how do you handle that?
I think you've got to have tough skin. Caleb probably tougher skin than I do in his former background, but I think it just comes down to keeping the reason why in the back of your head and not being paralyzed by getting turned down once or twice and thinking like, hey, this is for a bigger picture. This is for more than just the acquisition of another door. It's either the financial independence piece or it's the family piece, and so that's as long as you keep that as the driver. I don't think it bothers either of us.
yeah, one thing to add to that I was going to say is one thing to ask a potential seller, and we have asked them, is everyone has a number they would sell it for, right? And a lot of times I think that number is lower than what you might expect it to be. And so we've asked, like, is there a number that would make it possible or that you'd want to sell that you could not turn down? And some of these numbers people have thrown out to us, like, that's all you'd want? They have this preconceived number in their head, and that's what they want to get. And we see the upside in, we're like, we definitely can make that happen. So they might have said no at the beginning, and we've just kind of coaxed them and said, isn't there a number that you would be willing to sell for? And a lot of times there is.
I just love that. Basically, coming back to that of what would you sell for, and I think whether you're calling for deals as an investor or if you're a real estate agent, right, and you're getting on the phone with a potential seller, and they're saying no, there's no way I would sell, and you ask, okay, like, well, what would change for that to change, right? What would make you want to sell? And they might say, oh, like I break my leg. But you could just say, well, is there a certain price that you would sell at, like an offer you just couldn't refuse? And
Right.
they don't know where the market is. Most people aren't in real estate. They're
Exactly.
worried about their regular jobs as an accountant or something, and they don't know what they would sell for. And so they might say something super cheap or it's totally market value. And you're like, well, shoot, let's make that happen.
Yep.
And I just love that.
Caleb, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would love to have like a detailed discussion, straight up like role playing. You calling me, I own a mobile home apartment or a complex, and maybe I've thought of selling it, but So you call me, and I want to hear like exactly what you are saying to these owners of mobile home
Yeah.
or apartment complexes.
Yeah.
All
Let's
right,
go.
you ready?
All right. Yeah.
All right, ring, ring, ring. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Who is this?
Yeah, my name is Caleb. I apologize if I'm calling you at a bad time, but was wondering if you're interested in selling your apartment you have there for sale, or that you have.
Yeah, I get these calls like quite a bit, almost every day, or a text message. It would have to be just on a reasonably high number for me to sell.
Sure, man, I get that, and we definitely are interested though. I love the area, love the spot. Is there what would be a number that you would not be able to turn down if you say you need a high number? What would that be?
I haven't really thought about it. I know I just keep getting hit up by all these people wanting to buy my precious apartment buildings. How about you just give me a number?
Man, I would love to, absolutely. And what we would love to do is if we could meet up sometime for lunch or even grab a second at the property and swing over there and take a look at it. We really like to see the property in person and walk in and just see the improvements you've made, where you've gone, with it, and this upside that you think it has.
Okay, yeah, I can meet you at the property. I'm there all the time anyway. I'll be there, tomorrow at 2.
Man, we
Lunch
will
is on
definitely
you.
make that work. We will always buy lunch. So one thing we really don't do, and it might be a little awkward, but it is not try to make an offer on the phone. We try to get face to face with someone and create a relationship with them beforehand. And so, I mean, maybe once we've made an offer on the phone, but it seems so less personal to do that. If we can get in person with that individual, walk in the property or have a lunch with them, we have not had one situation where that person has not wanted us to come back and view it again.
And
I think that's huge. Just being likable too, right?
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I would even go a step further and say that we haven't really missed on too many of our offers and too many of our off-market deals. And from the aspect of some of them have been, the mobile home park owner, I think we probably met 20 times. And some people would look at that like, well, that was wasteful or like that's a lot of chit chat. But at the end of the day, that's probably what he wanted out of it. He had many offers from institutional mobile home park owners and wasn't willing until somebody spent 20 times with him in his drinking coffee. So
if Caleb, if you're making the calls,
Yeah.
and you're also 6 hours away from the property, How do you kind of transition that over to Kyle, hand that ball off to him and be like, well, I thought I talked to Caleb on the phone. Is that a hang up for anybody, or is that just like limited belief?
Yes and no, man. So realistically, if it comes down to an acquisition, I'm the one talking with them. What we've kind of done, and me and Kyle, because we both have sourced deals, and I would say whoever's on that has kind of seen it through. So I would come up there in person, and we would probably both go there together, but I would not show up to that property with that seller.
Wow. Okay. So you would drive the 5, 6 hours, and so you encourage that if you're calling them on the phone, like you be the one fly across the country or whatever it's got to be to do that.
Man, I think of the highest rate for success doing that because, I mean, you look at the acquisition of property, that is I would say without the acquisition of the property, nothing else takes place, right? So to close on that deal, I would say at that point is the most important thing. And to talk to a seller and then to be there in person is what I think pushes that to the next level.
That's a lot of determination. I love that. How many phone calls does it take for you to typically get an appointment?
Man, we've had as few as one with a couple individuals, but it's been probably 2, 3, 4 sometimes, I mean, just calling them, knowing that we're not a scam. I don't know how many times people called and said, well, I just thought you were trying to scam me. We had one guy that I left a voicemail with a couple of times. A month later, he called back and said, I think I do want to sell. And for whatever reason, he had heard about our company and what we had done with another place. And I think kind of the reputation just preceded us. And he said, maybe these guys are actually legit and they actually will close. I had other people lowballing me, trying to throw numbers out. They didn't follow through. And he knew we would.
I love that. All right, guys, we are getting into kind of like the later half of the show here. And I just want to say, like, thanks so much for coming on. I do want to get one glimpse of like where you're at today, right? And so you mentioned 180 units, a series of multifamilies, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, mobile homes. Like you've got the full gamut, it sounds like, of just true like investment, like residential investment properties. And so you said 180 units. How much cash flow is that bringing in? Are you still working your W-2 jobs? Where are you at kind of right now?
Yeah, good question. So we both have formally left W-2 positions as well as our wives, and so we're I guess passively retired in a sense that we probably have the cash flow, and it goes against everything that probably we stand for. That we have no interest in heading to the beach next week, and so we both grind every day in a sense that I was at the construction site this morning, worked as many hours as I could get in prior to jumping on the call with you guys. And I know Caleb was doing the same for 500 miles away. So we continue to grow this now with an emphasis of like, how many more people can we help, right? It started as financial independence for ourselves and then for our families. And then now it's like our team. So
the way you phrased that initially, you said we both left our W-2s and our wives. I was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I was like,
whole new level.
I was like, wow, guys. Am I the only straight one on the call now, or what? Yeah.
Don't let our wives listen to this. No, we are both happily married in love.
Yeah, but not with each other. Is that right?
No, not with each other.
Well, maybe in love with each other, but different kind of love. Different kind of love.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you for catching that, Allie. Yeah, thank you for catching that. I appreciate the clarification there. No, I had a great relationship and probably the best support system that I could possibly have. So.
Amazing, guys. Awesome. Well, hey, with that being said, I think it's time for the Final Four.
The Final Four.
All right, guys, these are the same questions we ask every guest every time. Allie, kick us off.
Number 1, what are each of you reading right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually reading a book called Whole Brain Child by Daniel Siegel. And like I alluded to in a great relationship, I've got 2 young kids and a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And I coach high school hoops. And so this book in particular is one of them that was brought up to me. It's written by a clinical psychologist that will help with the development of my relationship, not only with my kids, but also with the high school hoops team. And so it's been a great book so far.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm reading what's called The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. It just goes through the different level of leaderships from position to permission to production to people development and then pinnacle, and how to basically have a positive influence on those around you and whether it's employees or just people around you.
Nice.
All right. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so I think I think this is a very tough one, and I've thought a lot about it, and I think it's probably more learned than it was spoken. But hard work is your best friend, and it's one of those things it'll never let you down. And even if you turn your back on it, hard work will never turn your back on you. And so I think it's one of the things that is deeply ingrained in my personality and where this business has went. And so hard work's always there for you.
Yeah, and I recently just read Who Not How for the second time about a month ago, and a quote that stuck out to me was, and man, I think it's so true, is that you can have anything in life you want if you help others get what they want. And so really putting other people before yours, and before yourself goes such a long ways in building relationships, finding deals even, but even just bigger that in life and in your spiritual development and faith and all that.
Nice. What
I love that.
What is your why?
I think Caleb and I's is very similar. It's evolved over the last couple of years, but Caleb just alluded to it. It started out with trying to get more time with our family, and then as it evolved, as we got that time back, it now became how much of an impact can we make? Still being a great spouse, being a great husband, being a great father, but then how many more people can we impact with the freedom of our time? And that's what this has all come down to. So we got no plans of retiring, but that's really the prime driver in the why.
Yeah, and mine is very similar. I'll kind of go on the same kind of line. There is using real estate as a means. Like, I love real estate. I'm passionate about it. But at the end of the day, it's still just real estate, and there's so much more to life, affecting others. And so for me, it'd be having I would say a kingdom purpose, a purpose for Christ that's going to be able to make an impact on others. And so that's really the biggest thing, man. In this time, freedom is the hope that it'll get back to us, whether it's starting a nonprofit. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I hope it leads to a point where we can impact many people.
Yeah, curious to just like kind of dig a little deeper there on who are the others that you are helping, right? Like, are you considering that like your tenants, or is it like who are you trying to help with your money here?
Yeah, so it all starts with probably the people around us, the people closest to us first, being able to show up for them. So like I alluded to, being a better father, being a better friend, even of Caleb's, right? And being a better husband. And then also being a better property manager, right? You brought it up about the tenant aspect. Many, many people across the nation have absolutely terrible living conditions, and we're in those every day. So giving back, when I said wife approved, like we so sincerely mean that we give back a product that is very special. And then outside of that, Caleb brought it up, like we both are in several nonprofits, coaching high school hoops. Caleb's in many other things as well. So now it becomes how much can we impact the community around us, and how many more people can we touch?
Love that. That's actually one of my things I want to do one day is coach high school basketball and baseball.
Awesome.
I remember you saying that on a previous podcast, man.
Yeah.
Go after it. It is the best thing in the world that you could ever do. What a blessing to the kids.
I when I was in high school, I actually coached like a middle school rec league, and it was like some of the most fun ever because like, when I played, I'd probably sit on the bench half the time. I was never that good. And so I was kind of like out of it. But when you're coaching, you are in it the whole time, right? Like I would leave those games with like my voice just gone, screaming at the refs. And yeah, so it's just so much fun. Anyway, all right. Fourth question. What is the worst / most annoying catchphrase that you can think of?
For me, it's YOLO. In the wrong way, right? YOLO can mean a lot of great things, but to me, it's so abused in the wrong direction. And like Caleb had brought up, for us, it's not the selfish aspect of this business. It's not the doors. It's not the even the financial independence at this point. And so for me, that one probably hurts more than anything. And I hear these young high school players, in their term and their slang, not realizing the opportunity and what they have in life. So I think that's for me is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, and I would say probably mine, just one thing that pops in my head, and it's probably because my brother has this tattooed on him on his side. It's you never know. And I just always mocked him for that. And I just feel it's I guess you never know is what he's saying in life. And I think you do know. As long as you have your head on right and your heart in the right place, I think you do know.
Yeah, and I'll share my two too, just because like I've got two in my head. One is this actually might have been said on last week's podcast, but like it is what it is. It never really like irked me until someone mentioned that. I think it was the last week's podcast guest, was it? And I was like, yeah, that is kind of annoying. Like, why is what it is? Like, you can change a lot of things, and so there's that, and then there's also Shit, now I forget my other one. Oh, I got it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like, if it's my cake, I'm gonna eat it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, those are my two. Allie, what catchphrase do you hate? Come on, don't.
Mine would be probably grammar related. I think. Call me a stickler. Like the there's one, oh my gosh, now I'm blanking too, where it's like they're confusing could or couldn't. I couldn't care less. Like versus like I could care less. Or what's that word? Oh my god, there's another just one word. Man, what is it? That is now they were the term literally in I shit you not in the dictionary now literally means figuratively. I'm like, are we kidding? What? It literally died last night. Like, wow, now that is actually true because literally means figuratively. I don't know. Grammar shit like that makes me so mad.
Oh my gosh, I literally can't believe you said. Now that I know, I feel like that's like so literally such a thing that like millennials say. My wife says it all the time, and it's like, oh.
Are you not a millennial, Craig?
I am a millennial, very much so. Like I'm dead millennial.
You're literally a millennial.
I'm literally a millennial. Caleb, thank you guys so much. Before we go though, where's one place that people can find you, reach out to you if they have any questions?
Probably the best place is on our Instagram. We're pretty active there. We show a lot of what we're doing, and that's at FixerUpers. So at FixerUpers, it's a little bit of a play on word, not to go after Chip and Joanna Gaines, but instead of the Fixer Upper, the FixerUpers.
Okay. I thought that was one of those things that Allie might have got mad at there.
Change it immediately.
Yeah.
So a little background, Allie. The Uper is the term of the people of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So just so you know.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So Fixer, is it YOUPPERS? YOOPERS. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very important word if you're a Michigander or northern Wisconsin. So.
Nice.
All right, that's good to know. We're getting culture lessons here too.
Thank you both for coming
guys,
on.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I thought this was an incredible episode. Really just shows to kind of think bigger, right? You can think beyond, don't get me wrong. I'm like the house hacking guy. I think everyone should house hack, but you can think beyond that, right? Especially if you are in a cheaper market, you can buy 12, 15 units if you've got the cash saved up and aren't afraid of doing a little bit of work. So, guys, thanks so much. I love your tenacity. I love your whys, and let's just be sure to be in touch as you continue to grow.
No doubt. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And that was Kyle and Caleb. Allie, what did you think of Kyle and Caleb?
That was amazing. We touched on so many topics: partnership, DIY. We didn't even get to frugality too much, but they just jumped on in 0 to 200 doors in 2 years, making a lot of cash flow. It's an awesome story that they shared.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible to see that growth, and I just love seeing it. To go from nothing, right, to just working W-2 jobs, to picking up basically 30 units in their first year with those 2 apartment buildings, and then going into mobile home parks, and just it feels like these guys have no fear, right? And maybe that's because of the partnership, maybe because they're in it with someone else, so when someone's having a bad day that's down, the other one brings them up, and vice versa. And so, I personally don't. I've partnered on one deal in my life that I've actually run, and it was good, it was fine, but I never thought of it as a way to scale, or it just always felt like too much pressure to me. But I think they've really found an amazing thing there. And so if you can find somebody, the Caleb to your Kyle, right, the Kobe to your Shaq, right, find your person and grow and scale with them, because they've built a tremendous business, and they're just I feel like they're just starting.
Yeah. And the underlying message throughout the whole podcast, I would say, is the value of, actually providing value, and therefore strengthening relationships with people that, start out as strangers, but then you meet them consistently, meeting, an apartment building owner for 20 times, thinking that you might not get anything out of it, but doing it because you want to provide them value. It pays off in the end.
For sure. I wouldn't be surprised if that apartment guy is at their wedding, or I guess they're both married, but like whatever, like they're probably friends at this point now, right?
To each other?
Yeah, they're married to each other, so they left their W-2s, they left their wife, and now, yeah. I'm glad you caught that
That's
too.
funny.
Yeah, awesome, Allie. Well, anything else you want to say before we part ways this week?
That was a great episode. I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah, great episode. And guys, if you didn't hear us in the beginning, we're going to ask you again at the end. Please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Share this with your friends. Share it with your family. We want to see this thing explode, especially this episode. Really inspire some people. So with that being said, guys, have a great week. We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.